She walked in expecting an apology. She walked out facing questions she clearly hadn't anticipated. For years, Megyn Kelly had openly challenged Meghan Markle's public narrative, questioning contradictions, media appearances, and statements that seemed difficult to reconcile. Her criticism had become a source of frustration for Markle, who reportedly wanted the opportunity to confront one of her most persistent critics directly. So when Markle agreed to appear on Kelly's show, the expectations were obvious. Many assumed it would become a showdown between a celebrity determined to defend herself and a journalist unwilling to soften her questions. Markle appeared prepared. Kelly appeared even more prepared. The studio itself was deliberately simple: 2 chairs, professional lighting, and almost no distractions. There was nowhere to hide behind spectacle. Kelly had spent days reviewing Markle's public statements and organizing the questions she wanted answered. When Markle entered with members of her team, the atmosphere immediately became tense. Assistants adjusted the lighting and positioning while Markle settled into her chair. Once the cameras rolled, Kelly began calmly. "Thank you for being here. I know this wasn't an easy decision. You've been critical of my coverage in the past." Markle's expression tightened. Critical is one word for it. Another would be dishonest. Kelly didn't react emotionally. Dishonest is a serious accusation. Which specific coverage are you referring to? Markle accused Kelly of repeatedly misrepresenting her words, questioning her motives, and portraying her as the villain in a story Kelly had created. Kelly acknowledged that she had covered Markle extensively, but rejected the accusation that her work was personal. "I've analyzed your public statements and pointed out contradictions. That's journalism, not an attack." Then came the question that changed the tone. Which specific statement did I make that was false? For a moment, Markle appeared caught off guard. She mentioned Kelly's criticism that Markle had manipulated the media. Kelly immediately explained her reasoning. Markle had repeatedly spoken about wanting privacy, while also participating in major interviews and highly publicized projects. Kelly argued that the contradiction itself was legitimate material for discussion. Markle then referenced accusations that she had driven a wedge between Prince Harry and his family. Again, Kelly pushed back. "Harry publicly described the choices he made. I reported on those choices." The conversation became even more uncomfortable when Kelly brought up Markle's marriage. "How is everything? Because the rumors aren't coming from nowhere." Markle's expression hardened. "My marriage is none of your business." Kelly responded that Markle and Harry had repeatedly made their relationship part of their public story through documentaries, interviews, appearances, and discussions about their lives. When you make your marriage part of your public narrative, questions about it become fair game. Markle leaned forward. "You've had an agenda against me from the beginning." Kelly simply shrugged. "Before you were married, you were already receiving public attention. My job has always been to question what public figures say and do." That response left the room noticeably quieter. What began as an appearance seemingly designed to challenge a critic had transformed into something very different: an intense examination of public claims, contradictions, and accountability. And the biggest question was no longer whether Kelly would apologize. It was whether Markle could answer the questions she had walked into the studio expecting to control. "I've been skeptical, yes, because your story kept changing. Some of the claims you made didn't always align with information that could be independently checked." The room grew quieter. Megyn challenged her to be specific, and Kelly immediately produced examples. She pointed to claims about Meghan receiving little support while adjusting to royal life, statements surrounding the wedding, and comments that had generated questions about racism and the evidence behind them. "These are inconsistencies," Kelly said. "I didn't create them. I reported on them." Megyn argued that Kelly had deliberately presented everything in the most negative possible way. "I reported what was available," Kelly replied. "If accurate reporting feels negative to you, that isn't my responsibility." Megyn's expression tightened. "You're not a journalist. You're a commentator with an agenda." Kelly remained composed. I spent 25 years working in media. I've worked for major networks and interviewed presidents and world leaders. My credentials aren't the issue. The issue is why you struggle to answer straightforward questions about statements you made publicly. I'm not defensive. Megyn replied. You accused me of dishonesty before I asked my first question. Kelly answered. That's not openness. That's confrontation. Then Kelly changed direction. Let's talk about something current. The Met Gala happened recently, and you weren't invited. What happened? For a brief moment, Megyn's composure appeared to falter. Guest lists change every year. Kelly acknowledged that, but continued pressing. You've attended major fashion events. You've appeared on magazine covers, so being absent from one of the biggest fashion events in the world seems noteworthy. I don't speculate about Anna Wintour's decisions. Megyn responded. Kelly smiled slightly. You've speculated extensively about decisions made by the palace. Why is this different? Megyn argued that the situations were completely unrelated. Kelly disagreed, pointing to a broader pattern of professional setbacks and asking whether repeated exclusions might deserve examination. The Met Gala, Netflix cancellations, the Spotify situation. There appears to be a pattern of doors closing. At what point do you acknowledge that? There is no pattern. Megyn replied. There is observable evidence. Kelly countered. I'm asking you to explain it. The interview moved to Netflix. Several projects had reportedly changed or disappeared, and Kelly asked what had happened. Projects evolve, Megyn said. That's entertainment. Evolve is generous, Kelly replied. The industry reports described some of them as cancelled. That's different from evolution. Megyn accused entertainment publications of sensationalizing the story. Kelly pointed to the large reported value of the couple's Netflix agreement and questioned whether viewers were entitled to understand why the output had been limited. I don't discuss private business matters, Megyn answered. Kelly immediately challenged the distinction. You've discussed family finances publicly. You've talked about financial arrangements, payments, and being cut off. Why are business finances suddenly off limits? Megyn had no immediate response. Kelly continued, arguing that privacy seemed to apply differently depending on the subject. Family matters become public when they support your narrative, while business matters become private when the questions become uncomfortable. That looks less like principle and more like strategy. You're twisting everything, Megyn replied. I'm pointing out inconsistencies, Kelly said. That's what I do. Then came the question that changed Megyn's demeanor completely. Let's talk about Harry. How is he? The walls immediately went up. I prefer not to discuss my husband. Kelly raised an eyebrow. You prefer not to discuss the person who has been central to your public narrative. She referenced their documentary, major interviews, and joint projects. How can we discuss your public life without discussing him? Be focusing on me, Megyn answered. But Kelly wasn't convinced. You're not presenting yourself as a completely separate public figure. Much of what you've done, since leaving the UK, has involved both of you. If Harry is suddenly off limits, you're removing one of the biggest parts of the story you've spent years presenting to the public. The interview had begun as a confrontation. Now it looked more like an interrogation. And the uncomfortable questions were only getting started. Megyn's jaw tightened. There are rumors I want to address. Kelly looked at her calmly. Which rumors? The divorce rumors. The separation speculation. They're completely false. They're malicious lies designed to destroy what we've built. Kelly paused. I didn't ask about divorce. I asked how Harry was doing. Why did your mind immediately go there? Megyn stiffened. Because that's the narrative people like you keep pushing. I haven't pushed that narrative today. Kelly replied. I asked a simple question. You heard the word divorce. That interpretation came from you. Megyn insisted she understood the broader narrative Kelly was trying to create. Kelly disagreed. I'm not creating a narrative. I'm observing your reaction. When someone asks about your husband, and you immediately launch into a defense, against divorce accusations that weren't made. That tells me something. That's ridiculous. It's an observation, Kelly said. Your first association when I mentioned Harry was a divorce denial. Meghan's expression hardened. It tells you that I'm tired of tabloid speculation. I'm not a tabloid, Kelly answered. I'm sitting here asking how your husband is doing. It's one of the simplest questions imaginable. And you turned it into a divorce denial. Meghan briefly shifted as though preparing to stand, then sat back down. You're doing exactly what you've always done, twisting everything to make me look bad. Kelly didn't move. What have I twisted? Give me one specific statement I've made today that was inaccurate. Meghan struggled to provide one. The implication that my marriage is failing. I asked how Harry was doing. You supplied the rest. Kelly then addressed the Netflix discussion. I asked what happened to those projects. I didn't assign blame. I asked for an explanation, and you declined to give one. Meghan's voice rose. Your tone is the problem. My tone is direct, Kelly replied. If direct questioning feels like an attack, that's about your comfort with scrutiny. It isn't evidence of misconduct. Meghan accused Kelly of attacking her for years, and described the interview as another chapter in a long, running campaign. Kelly drew a distinction. I've covered you for years. There's a difference. Covering someone means reporting on their public statements and actions. Attacking means inventing things. Everything I've reported has been based on things you've said or done. She continued, the contradictions I've pointed out are real contradictions. If they're uncomfortable, perhaps examine the contradictions instead of blaming me for noticing them. The atmosphere became increasingly tense. Then Kelly delivered her most direct statement yet. You came here wanting to confront me about my coverage. You expected me to back down, apologize, and admit I'd been unfair. She shook her head. I'm not going to do that because I don't believe I've been unfair. I've been accurate, and accuracy isn't something I apologize for. Meghan fired back that Kelly's accuracy was selective. My accuracy is documented, Kelly answered. Every claim I've made is sourced. Every contradiction I've identified can be checked. If you can show me something I got wrong, I'll correct it. That's what journalists do. She paused. But you haven't shown me anything. You've only shown me that you dislike being questioned. Meghan grabbed her water and took a long drink before setting the glass down firmly. This was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. Probably, Kelly said, but not for the reason you think. Meghan stared at her. What's that supposed to mean? You came here expecting to put me in my place. You thought confronting your loudest critic would make her apologize or back down. But I don't back down from reporting I believe is accurate. Kelly leaned forward. So instead of the apology you expected, you got more questions you couldn't answer. That isn't my fault. It's what happens when a public narrative is subjected to scrutiny. Meghan finally stood. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by someone who built a career tearing people down. Kelly remained seated, looking up at her with a calm expression. I didn't build a career tearing people down, she said. I built one asking questions. The room fell silent. And suddenly, the confrontation Meghan had apparently expected to control was no longer hers to command. If questions feel like being torn down, that says something about the stability of what you've built. Kelly's words hung in the studio. Meghan pushed back, insisting she had never been given a fair opportunity to explain herself. Kelly disagreed. I've given you every opportunity today, she said. I've asked about contradictions, given you space to clarify your position, and invited you to provide your perspective. You've treated almost every question as an attack. That isn't unfairness. That's defensiveness. Because you're hostile. Meghan replied. I've been direct, Kelly answered. Hostility would mean insults, false accusations, or deliberately unfair framing. I haven't done any of those things. I've asked questions and waited for answers. You simply haven't liked the questions. Meghan reached for her purse, her movements increasingly sharp. I'm leaving? That's your right, Kelly said. "But before you go, I want to say something." Megyn stopped. Kelly remained composed. "You came here expecting to settle a score. You wanted me to admit that I had been wrong about you. But I'm not going to say that simply because you're unhappy with my coverage." She continued, explaining that her criticisms were based on publicly available statements and documented events. "You've accused me of having an agenda. You've called my coverage unfair. But you haven't identified one specific false statement and demonstrated that it was false. You've challenged my conclusions, but you haven't actually challenged the evidence behind them." Megyn stared at her. "You'll regret this." Kelly barely reacted. "People have been telling me that for 25 years. I'm still waiting." Megyn warned that the interview would follow them both. Kelly responded that the footage would speak for itself. "My audience will see it. So will yours. Let them decide who came across as prepared to answer questions." Megyn moved toward the exit, then stopped for one final confrontation. "You know what your problem is. You've built your identity around controversy, attacking people, and tearing down anyone more successful than you." Kelly smiled slightly. "More successful? By what measure?" She pointed to her own career, describing decades in media and the independent platform she had built. "I've survived criticism, professional pressure, and attempts to silence me. I've built a platform with millions of viewers. So I'm not sure more successful. Is the argument you think it is?" Megyn countered that she had created global impact through her work. Kelly immediately asked for evidence. "Impact requires measurable change. Name one policy that changed because of your foundation. Name one system that was reformed. Give me one measurable outcome that demonstrates the impact you're describing." Megyn hesitated. Kelly noticed. "That's the point," she said quietly. "You talk about impact, but you haven't demonstrated it here. My criticism has never been that you're evil or unintelligent. It's that there's sometimes a gap between your claims and the evidence supporting them." "That gap is accountability?" Kelly added. "Pointing it out isn't an attack." "We're done here," Megyn said coldly. "We've been done since you decided to attack the questions instead of answering them. But goodbye." Megyn turned and walked out. The door closed behind her. Kelly remained seated for a moment before turning toward the camera. "Well, that was predictable." She explained that she expected Megyn to confront her and demand an apology. What she hadn't known was whether Megyn would bring evidence to challenge the criticism. According to Kelly, that never happened. She argued that her reporting was based on public statements, documented events, and specific contradictions that could be examined independently. "The important thing is what she couldn't do," Kelly said. "She couldn't identify one false statement I made." The interview had lasted less than half an hour, but its impact was already becoming the bigger story. Kelly maintained that she would continue asking difficult questions and examining public claims, regardless of whether powerful figures liked the scrutiny. And Megyn's walkout became the final image of the confrontation. What began as an attempt to challenge a critic had ended with the critic refusing to apologize, and turning the entire encounter into another example of the very scrutiny Megyn had come to dispute. So what do you think? Was Kelly too direct, or were the questions fair? Who would you want to see face Kelly next? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe for more dramatic celebrity confrontations.